Let's begin. But first, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Sky High Stories. The first pregnancy test lands on the CEO's desk early in the morning, slipped between financial reports and acquisition proposals like an afterthought. He barely looks at it at first, until the words register. Positive. His wife's name is written at the top in neat, familiar handwriting. For a brief, dangerous moment, something close to joy flickers in his chest. A child. A legacy. Proof that his carefully curated life is still intact. But that feeling doesn't have time to settle before his phone vibrates again. This time, it's the mistress. Her voice trembles with excitement as she delivers the news he never expected to hear twice. She's pregnant too. The room seems to tilt. His breath catches, and the city skyline beyond the glass walls blurs as fear, excitement, panic, and guilt collide inside him all at once. 2 women. 2 unborn lives. One man who thought he could control everything. In his world, scandals can be buried with money, mistakes erased with power. But this is different. This isn't a headline waiting to break or a deal gone wrong. This is flesh and blood, consequence and choice, converging at the same moment. He imagines the questions, the demands, the inevitable collision he has spent years avoiding. As the hours pass, the weight of it all presses down harder. He realizes, with a cold clarity, that no decision will leave him unscathed. Someone will lose. Someone will walk away changed forever. And though he doesn't yet know how or when, a quiet certainty settles in his chest. One woman's choice will shatter the fragile balance of his life and leave nothing the same again. From the outside, the CEO's life looks flawless. He built his empire from calculated risks and ruthless discipline, turning ambition into authority and wealth into unquestioned respect. Boardrooms fell silent when he spoke. Markets reacted to his decisions. Yet behind the polished suits and confident stride lived a man hollowed out by routine success. His marriage, once full of promise, had slowly turned into a quiet partnership of schedules, public appearances, and polite conversations that never reached the heart. The affair did not begin with passion, at least not at first. It started with attention, someone who listened, admired, and made him feel desired rather than expected. The mistress entered his life during a season when he felt most invincible, convincing him that wanting more did not make him cruel, only human. He told himself lies that sounded reasonable, that he deserved happiness, that his wife wouldn't notice, that no one would truly get hurt. Money made the deception easier. Luxury apartments, discreet trips, carefully managed time, every problem felt solvable with resources and influence. He believed control was his greatest strength, that emotions could be negotiated like contracts and consequences delayed indefinitely. When guilt surfaced, he silenced it with logic, reminding himself how well everything was still functioning. What he never noticed was his growing blindness. He failed to see his wife's quiet withdrawal, mistaking her silence for acceptance. He ignored the mistress's rising expectations, assuming gratitude would be enough. In managing everyone else's emotions like assets, he never realized he was the one losing sight of love, of loyalty, and of the one thing money could never buy back once it was gone. For years, the wife had learned to live inside the quiet spaces of her marriage. She mastered the art of waiting, waiting for him to come home, waiting for conversations that never moved beyond logistics, waiting for the warmth that once felt effortless between them. Loneliness became familiar, a soft ache she carried without complaint, convincing herself that endurance was the price of loving a powerful man. She attended events on his arm, smiled for cameras, and returned to an empty house that echoed with everything left unsaid. Neglect did not arrive all at once. It crept in slowly, disguised as late meetings, business trips, and phone calls taken behind closed doors. She told herself it was normal, that success demanded sacrifices. Still, some nights she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how 2 people could share a life and yet feel so far apart. She never confronted him. Silence felt safer than rejection. The pregnancy changed something inside her. When she saw the positive result, her hands trembled, not with fear, but with fragile hope. A child felt like a bridge back to the man she married, a reason for him to look at her again with something other than distraction. She imagined softer mornings, shared laughter, and a renewed sense of belonging. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to believe that love could return. Yet beneath that hope, unease stirred. Small things began to trouble her: the way he guarded his phone, the sudden generosity followed by emotional distance, the faint scent of unfamiliar perfume clinging to his clothes. In elevators, at dinners, even in moments of tenderness, she felt the shadow of another presence pressing in. She said nothing. Instead, she absorbed the doubt quietly, letting it settle alongside her hope. Each unanswered question weighed heavier than the last, until the silence itself began to fracture her resolve. Somewhere deep within, she sensed that whatever truth waited ahead would demand more strength than she had ever been forced to summon before. The mistress moved through her days with a determined grace, each step measured, each word carefully chosen. She had learned early that ambition was not a luxury but a survival skill. Being the CEO's secret was thrilling, intoxicating even, but it was never enough. She wanted more than whispers and stolen moments. She wanted legitimacy, a life that matched her dreams, and proof that she was the one he truly needed. In her mind, pregnancy was the ultimate declaration, the irrefutable sign that she had won where the wife had failed. Every kick and flutter inside her felt like a victory, a quiet assertion of power. She imagined the future, the CEO looking at her with pride, the house filled with laughter that belonged solely to them, her name whispered in a world that had always been out of reach. The baby was not just life, it was leverage, a guarantee that she could no longer be ignored, a permanent claim to the man who had captivated her heart and ambition alike. Her confidence was dazzling, even blinding. She could not see the cracks in her plans, the subtle ways the wife remained entwined in his life, in his memories, in the habits they had built together. The quiet endurance, the soft resilience of the wife, seemed invisible to her. The mistress assumed that love could be dictated, that desire and circumstances could be aligned like chess pieces, each move predictable and controllable. But in her certainty lay a dangerous naivety. She did not anticipate heartbreak, betrayal, or the unpredictable choices that would soon shatter her expectations. Her dream of triumph was fragile, perched on assumptions she could not control, and the moment it began to unravel, she would realize that winning a heart, or a life, was far more complicated than she had ever imagined. The moment arrived quietly, almost deceptively ordinary, yet it carried the weight of an inevitable storm. The CEO sat at the dining table, sipping his morning coffee, when the wife's tentative voice broke through the silence. I'm pregnant," she said, eyes searching his for a flicker of something that once had been love. His throat tightened, and before he could respond, the mistress appeared in his office later that day, radiant with pride, holding her own positive test. 2 pregnancies. 2 lives intertwined with his choices. The walls of his carefully managed world began to tremble. Confrontation followed, not with shouting, but with the raw sting of words that cut deeper than any raised voice. The wife spoke with quiet precision, revealing not anger, but a hurt far more terrifying, disappointment in the man she once trusted. The mistress, confident yet trembling, demanded recognition, a claim on what she believed was rightfully hers. Between the two, the CEO faltered, indecision weighing heavier than any fear of scandal. He tried to placate, to explain, to negotiate, but his words rang hollow. He could not choose without hurting both, and his cowardice became a cruel weapon, leaving both women exposed to the full force of his indecision. In the wife's eyes, love had disappeared entirely, replaced by calculation, ambition, and self-interest. She recognized that the man she married no longer existed in the ways that mattered, and the family she hoped to nurture was now impossible. Pain settled over her quietly, a heavy, immovable weight that pressed down with every glance and every half-hearted apology from him. The house fell into a strange, suffocating silence after that. There were no dramatic shouts, no slamming doors, just the quiet devastation of broken trust, shattered expectations, and futures abruptly rewritten. In that silence, all 3 understood. Nothing would ever be the same again. The decision did not come in a rush of tears or dramatic declarations. It arrived slowly, settling into the wife's chest like a heavy, undeniable truth. Alone in the quiet of their bedroom, she stared at the ceiling and understood that this child, once a symbol of hope, had become entwined with betrayal. Bringing a life into a marriage hollowed by lies felt unbearable. For the first time, she chose not endurance, but control over her body, her future, and the pain that threatened to consume her. Isolation wrapped around her in layers. She told no friends, sought no comfort. Even the house seemed to withdraw, rooms too large and too silent. Inside, her emotions dulled into numbness, a protective emptiness that allowed her to function. Doubt whispered constantly, what if this was a mistake? What if she would regret it forever? But the alternative felt even more cruel. Hope, she realized, had already been taken from her. This was not the loss of a dream, but the acknowledgement that the dream had died long ago. The CEO was absent in all the ways that mattered. He offered logistics instead of comfort, money instead of presence. He did not sit beside her long enough to feel her fear, nor did he hold her hand when words failed. His distance confirmed what she already knew. She was alone in this, just as she had been alone in the marriage. When it was over, there was no relief, only a vast, aching quiet. The abortion did not free her. It severed the final thread binding her to him. As she walked away from the clinic, she understood with painful clarity that hope was gone, and with it, any reason to stay. The days after the abortion passed in a disorienting blur for the CEO. At first, he assumed she needed space, that her absence was temporary, a pause before she returned to the life they had shared. But as hours stretched into days, the signs of her vanishing became undeniable. The apartment felt hollow. Her clothes remained folded in the closet, untouched. Plates sat in the sink, as if waiting for a meal that would never be eaten. Her phone went unanswered, messages unread, and the hum of the city outside mocked the silence that had swallowed their home. He tried to convince himself that she would return, that her anger or grief would eventually wane, and that she would step back into his life as if nothing had changed. But each unanswered call, each empty doorway, chipped away at his denial. The absence that once felt like a minor inconvenience now pressed on him like a storm cloud. Panic replaced indifference. Fear settled into his chest with a weight he had not felt in years. Late one night, staring at the darkened city from the penthouse window, the chilling truth crept in: she might never return. The life he thought he controlled, the family he believed secure, was gone. Not stolen, not taken, gone by her own will. And in that realization, a hollow ache spread through him, deeper and colder than any fear of scandal or loss of wealth. Some losses, he now understood, could never be undone. The CEO threw himself into a frantic search, tracking every possible lead, calling hospitals, friends, even private investigators. Each hour stretched endlessly, a reminder of his failure to protect, to understand, to love. Guilt gnawed at him relentlessly. He had chosen neither woman, yet both had paid the price for his indecision. Sleepless nights blurred into restless days, and the empire he had built began to feel like a hollow monument to his own mistakes. Meanwhile, the mistress gave birth to their child. In another life, this should have been a moment of triumph, a celebration of victory and love. But the joy was fragile, hollow, and incomplete. The nursery, once imagined as a symbol of security and happiness, now felt like a reminder of absence, of the wife who had vanished and the consequences he could not undo. To the outside world, he remained the picture of success, powerful, admired, untouchable. Privately, he was unraveling, haunted by the emptiness left behind. Every achievement, every accolade, seemed meaningless against the vast void of loss and regret. In the end, he was left with only reflection. Some choices cannot be reclaimed, some mistakes cannot be reversed, and some hearts, once broken, refuse to return. Victory, when purchased at the cost of love and trust, feels like ruin. And in the silence of his penthouse, he understood the cruelest truth: what is lost may never come back.